Listen up, because this is one of those stories that gets turned into a slogan inside of 12 seconds, and then everyone starts swinging at each other instead of understanding what actually happened. If you've been watching the headlines, you've probably heard some version of they're importing voters, they're doing open borders, this is compassion, or this is invasion. Clean, simple, easy to repeat, but almost always missing the structure. So let's do this the right way. Not with slogans, not with panic, with facts and the system behind them. Here's the headline event. The US House voted 224 to 204 to pass a bill that would extend temporary protected status, or TPS, for roughly 350,000 Haitians for 3 years. And it did so with 10 Republicans joining Democrats, and one independent also voting yes. That bill now goes to the Senate, where the outcome is uncertain. Now, before we even talk about whether you like that outcome, you need to understand what TPS is and what it is not, because most of the public debate is built on confusion. TPS is not citizenship. TPS is a temporary immigration status that can allow someone already in the United States to remain and work legally if their home country is designated as unsafe due to things like armed conflict, environmental disaster, or other extraordinary conditions. That's the first pressure point. Legal status does not necessarily mean permanent status, at least on paper. But now here's where people get heated and where the controversy actually lives. TPS can be extended again and again and again, and over time, temporary starts to look like indefinite. So you've got two realities operating at the exact time. Reality number one, TPS is designed as a temporary humanitarian protection with work authorization. Reality number two, in practice, when a country stays unstable for years, TPS can become effectively long-term, which is exactly what critics are pointing to. Both of those things can be true at once. And if you can't hold two truths at the same time, you'll get played by the narrative. Now, why Haiti? Haiti originally received TPS after the 2010 earthquake, and the designation has been repeatedly extended because Haiti's conditions have remained unstable. And the current instability isn't abstract. One of the key data points being cited right now is the scale of displacement. Over 1.4 million people displaced by violence. That matters because TPS is built around a basic premise. Returning people to a country experiencing extraordinary instability can be dangerous, and supporters argue that's the case here. But opponents argue the mirror image point. If the program becomes a rolling extension for years, temporary becomes meaningless, and Congress should not treat TPS as a permanent residency workaround. So what did the House actually do? The House didn't vote to grant citizenship. The House voted to extend the TPS designation window for Haitians for 3 years, which would prevent termination and allow continued legal work and protection from deportation for those who were covered. And they did it in a politically unusual way, through a discharge petition to force the bill onto the floor, bypassing leadership resistance. That procedural detail matters because it tells you this wasn't business as usual. It was a pressure move inside of Congress. Now, here's where we shift into the deeper structure. Because if you're doing serious analysis, you don't stop at the vote count. You should ask yourself, why did 10 Republicans cross over? The public explanations in reporting include humanitarian concerns and also practical workforce arguments, especially in sectors like healthcare, where Haitian TPS holders are described as important contributors in some districts. Whether you think that's decisive or not, it's a factual part of the political story. Lawmakers were making arguments not just about Haiti, but about impact on their own communities. Now, let's talk about the second pressure point that makes this blow up online. People confuse TPS with border policy. TPS is not open border. TPS is not a new invitation for anyone to enter automatically. TPS is a status that applies to people already here under the rule of the designation. That doesn't mean there aren't legitimate debates about incentives or long-run impacts, but it's important not to argue a phantom. And this is where I'm going to slow it down. If someone argues TPS is basically permanent now, they're pointing to a political and administrative pattern, repeated extensions over many years. If someone argues sending people back is dangerous, they're pointing to the instability and displacement conditions being reported. Again, two arguments anchored in different parts of reality. Now, let's anchor the facts we have on the table before we go any further. Number one, the vote happened, 224 to 204 with bipartisan crossover. Number two, the bill's goal, extend Haiti TPS for 3 years. Senate is uncertain. Number three, TPS definition, temporary status plus work authorization for designated countries, not citizenship. Number four, Haiti's instability context, large-scale displacement cited at 1.4 million. And number five, the core controversy, whether temporary has become effectively long-term. Now, here's the Watchman take. The danger in this story isn't that people have options or opinions, as you were. The danger is that people are being trained to think in binary: compassion or sovereignty, humanitarian or rule of law, good or evil. That's how you lose the plot. Because the real question is not, do you love Haitians or do you hate America? The real question is, how does a temporary humanitarian system operate when the originating crisis becomes prolonged? That's a policy design problem, not a meme. In the next section, we're going to go deeper into this. What Congress is trying to do strategically and what it's not doing. How TPS has worked structurally over time, why temporary becomes extended. What ending TPS actually means in practice for the people and for enforcement. The Senate uncertainty and the legal backdrop shaping the fight as of right now. All right, now we go deeper because this is where most people get sloppy. They hear TPS for Haitians and they argue like it's one single thing. It's not. The story is actually three separate fights happening at the same exact time. Number one, a humanitarian safety argument is Haiti safe enough to send people back to? The second one, a rule of law, policy design argument. Okay, it's the two going back and forth. Can temporary remain credible if it becomes indefinite, which we've seen in the past? And number three, a political power argument. Who gets to decide? Congress, DHS, or the court system? If you understand that structure, you stop getting pulled into slogans. Now, here's what Congress actually did with this bill. The House passed legislation that would extend Haiti's TPS eligibility for 3 years after the DHS termination, meaning it blocks the immediate end of protections and keeps work authorization and deportation protections in place for the covered population. And the way it got done actually matters. It was advanced via a rare discharge petition, a procedural tool used to force a bill to the floor when leadership doesn't want to bring it up. That's not routine. That's Congress using a lever when leadership is resisting. Now, why is this happening right now? Because TPS for Haitians has been a legal and political battle for years, and this vote is landing right at the Supreme Court, is set to hear the arguments upcoming April 29th on whether the administration can end TPS for Haitians and a smaller group of Syrians. So, Congress isn't just making a policy statement. It's also potentially trying to shape the battlefield around a major legal decision soon to come. Now, let's talk about the reality on the ground in Haiti, because this is where facts matter. Reuters reported that Haiti's instability has displaced more than 1.4 million people. That is a lot of people. This isn't just political unrest. Displacement at this scale means housing collapse, disrupted markets, disrupted jobs, disrupted safety. Basic survival is fractured. And it's not just violence. The humanitarian picture is extremely ugly. An IPC assessment cited in reporting shows nearly 6 million Haitians, more than half the country, projected to face acute food insecurity, with 1.8 to 1.9 million at emergency levels. So if you're asking why supporters say deportations are dangerous, that's the foundation of their argument. Mass displacement plus major hunger stress plus instability. This is not a vibe. This is measurable. Now, here's the other side, and you should be able to articulate it cleanly, even if you disagree with it. Opponents argue that TPS has turned into a de facto long-term status, and that Congress keeps extending it instead of fixing the underlying immigration structure. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They're not wrong about the pattern. TPS was created as a temporary humanitarian designation. It provides protection from removal and work authorization for eligible people from designated countries, and it is not citizenship. But temporary only works if two things are true. The crisis ends in a reasonable time, or there's a realistic off-ramp that transitions people into another legal category. And Haiti's situation hasn't stabilized enough for clean closure. So TPS becomes a recurring extension fight. That creates a credibility problem. And that credibility problem becomes political gasoline. Because every time it gets extended, critics say, see, it's permanent. And every time people talk about ending it, supporters say, you're sending people into danger. That's why this debate never actually dies. Because it's not just about compassion. It's about policy design under long-term crisis conditions. Now, let's address the part that people love to distort. TPS doesn't automatically create citizenship. TPS is a temporary protection in work authorization status, period. But what is real and worth acknowledging is this. If someone has lived in the US for many years under repeated TPS extensions, they build a life. Work history, family, community ties, kids in schools, mortgages, taxes. So even if the program is legally temporary, it becomes socially embedded. And that's why off-ramps matter. Because mass termination doesn't hit an abstract group. It hits workplaces, communities, and families that have been operating for years under legal permission. And this is one reason the bipartisan crossover happened. Reporting noted that some Republican supporters represent districts with large Haitian communities and emphasized workforce impact, including healthcare and caregiving roles. Now, zoom out just for a second. This is the real strategic question. What is the purpose of TPS as a national policy tool? If TPS is a short-term emergency bridge, then Congress should treat it like a bridge. Limited duration, defined renewal logic, clear off-ramp, periodic evaluation with criteria that are transparent. But if TPS becomes a 10, 15 plus year recurring protection for certain countries, then we're no longer using it like a bridge. We're using it like a long-term residence policy without calling it that. And that's why this blows up. Because people can sense the mismatch. Now, let's talk about the Senate reality, because this is where people get confused about the House did it, so it's done. It's not done. The bill goes to a Republican-led Senate, where its path is uncertain. So right now, what you have is not a final outcome. You have a House vote, it's real, and it's recorded, 224 to 204. A Senate bottleneck is uncertain. A Supreme Court case that could reshape how TPS terminations actually work. This is the current battlefield. Now, I'm going to give you the Watchman conclusion, because this is the part you should take away if you want to be hard to manipulate. So, here it is. You can believe Haiti is too unstable to force returns right now, and still believe that a temporary program cannot remain credible without a defined endpoint. Those are not mutually exclusive. That's not betrayal, that's adult thinking. And if you want to argue this in good faith, here are the only 4 questions that actually matter. Number 1, what is the safety threshold for return and who defines it? Number 2, what is the timeline and review criteria for extensions? Number 3, what is the off-ramp for long-term residents who've built lives here? And the 4th one, what is the enforcement plan if the status ends? If a politician or pundit can't answer those, they're selling emotion, not policy. One last point, because I know somebody needs to hear it. When you see 350,000 Haitians and your brain instantly goes to panic, slow down. TPS is not the same as an open border policy. TPS is a legal status applied to eligible people already here under a designation framework. You can still debate its incentives and long-term impact, but debate the real thing, not a straw man. If this video helped you understand the structure behind the headlines, do 3 things. Number 1, hit like and subscribe, because the algorithm will feed people rage all day long, but will only push clarity like this if you force it to. Number 2, drop your take in the comments down below. Do you think TPS should have a hard sunset date? Or should it stay until the country stabilizes, no matter how long it takes? And number 3, follow me off YouTube so you don't lose the thread. I break these stories down in real time on my TikTok channel, the Watchman 98. Short, sharp, and actionable. And if you want deeper long-form conversations where we go beyond clips and actually unpack the systems, my podcast is on Spotify. That's where we take the time to actually think. As always, stay sharp, stay grounded, and I'll see you in the next one.